gasopod, a slow-moving lifeform and one of the larger herbivores on the planet, providing a substantial meal to would-be predators. The gasopod protects its domain by filling the surrounding waters with poisonous and corrosive pods whose contents dissolve even synthetic fibers. Thick, non-reactive skin and multiple gill layers render this creature impervious to the noxious acid clouds it produces. A bulbous, sac-like appendage on the rear end. A luminescent yellow algae grows inside the sac and produces the poisonous compound. Abdominal muscles can contract, causing the algae gland to emit the noxious compound into the surrounding water. Large pelvic fins, capable of powerful movement through the water when moving in small herds. Gasopods appear to be social in nature, and may even use their emissions in their relationship rituals. Their audible calls are likely signifiers of nearby threats or food sources. Approach with caution. Acidic pods may be retrieved and repurposed. Acid mushroom, a common spore-bearing fungi species. The flesh contains a high acidic compound, which leaches into the water if the outer skin is penetrated. It is not clear which predator species necessitated such extreme countermeasures, but the acid mushroom's numbers suggest it has successfully deterred most of them. Acid has applications in battery fabrication. Shuttlebug, a common scavenger at the base of the food chain. Small enough to be of little threat to most organisms, this creature is clearly adapted to feed on the waste products of the ecosystem around it. Its 3 mandibles are used to orient themselves when drifting, and to filter through detritus on cave floors. High-strength muscles in its 3 legs can propel the lifeform great distances through the water. Creepvine, a kelp species concentrated in large forests, in shallow, sandy waters. Loose roots anchor the plant to the sea floor, from where it grows steadily towards the surface in pursuit of sunlight. The stem is fibrous and rich in iron, making it both a viable base material for fabrications of textiles as well as a basic foodstuff. Giant coral tubes. This variety of coral formations on 4546b appear to be different solutions to the same problem of maximizing water and nutrient flow throughout the colony. These particular variants funnel water down a tube, filtering nutrients as they pass. Their size suggests they have been highly successful. Coral tube samples are rich in calcium, exploitable in bleach fabrication. Coral shell plate. This variant of coral has adapted to survive in close proximity to other corals, filtering nutrients from the water and sharing them via a spore-like substance which grows around the base. No practical applications discovered.
Oxygen.
Writhing weed. Well adapted to both shallow waters and cave systems, this plant lives in symbiosis with a coral species which forms around the base of the stems. Table coral. Each disc is an individual colony of microorganisms, filtering nutrients from the water. Growth patterns indicate the colonies are in direct competition for positions with superior current or light. Unlike other coral species, its structure is malleable, softly pulsating as it pumps nutrients to the extremities, and only turning rigid when it senses physical assault. The jewel-like nodes in its surface are concentrated buildups of rare minerals the coral is unable to process, exploitable in computer chip fabrication. Garryfish, a slow-moving and curious herbivore. Camouflage indicates adaptation for evasive behavior on the ocean floor. Its eye stalks may be beneficial when watching for predators from hiding places amongst the coral. More active during daylight hours, but slow and docile at all times. The garryfish's survival depends on a combination of camouflage and predators who can get a more filling meal elsewhere. Boomerang, a herbivore encountered in large numbers, found to frequent shallow waters and move in schools. Serrated teeth suggest adaptation for grinding corals other herbivores are unable to digest. Unusually, this species' two fins are a cartilaginous extension of its skeleton. They are less prone to damage and provide superior propulsion, but are also harder to grow back. The bright blue tips are in fact the ends of its digestive tract, where the luminescence of the corals it consumes is most focused. Most active during daylight hours and prone to flee on approach, the boomerang can more easily be observed at night, when its luminescence gives it away and it seeks the shelter of the seabed. Bladderfish. This unusual herbivore appears to be mostly defenseless, and bears little resemblance to other life forms around it. The bladderfish is able to filter air and sea water into its body cavity through a unique membrane which surrounds its spine like a bladder. This allows it to remove and consume organic particulate caught on the way and adjusts its buoyancy. Open-ended vascular tubing can be angled and contracted to pump out water and achieve low-velocity, guided propulsion. Largely oblivious to threats and practically immobile at night, its only identified defense mechanism is that it's composed almost entirely of water, air, and cartilage. Oxygen may be retrieved from the bladder and added to tanks on consumption. Membrane has applications as a natural water filter. Sulfur plant. These plants appear to serve as nests for the explosive organisms which guard them. The outer petals are undamaged by the presence of the inhabiting creature, suggesting a complex co-development. The plant has evolved to feed on nutrients and minerals deposited within it by the fish. Sulfuric deposits on the inner leaves provide an insight into the mechanism by which the creatures explode. Sulfur has applications in construction of the repair tool. Veined nettle, a common shallow water plant which frequently shows signs of predation around the edges of the leaves. Thick, violet veins carry nutrients to the extremities of the fan, and brightly colored seeds grow around the base and the stem. Rabbit ray. A herbivorous aquatic life form, rabbit rays appear to live serene and solitary lives, with few predators, a natural sense of curiosity, and awesomely poisonous flesh. Twin orange appendages mounted on the head sense vibration in the water. Markedly similar method of transportation to that of Earth rays. Zero genetic resemblance detected, suggesting these two species independently developed similar solutions to their environmental circumstances. Evidence indicates its large, side-facing eyes are relatively recent adaptations. It is likely there are related ray species in other environmental biomes on the planet. Inedible, but harmless. Hoopfish. Small, school-mentality prey fish with a unique method of propulsion, and a distant relative to the bladderfish. Rather than swimming, this life form uses the fine green antennae, which encircle its body to alter the composition of the water in front of it, allowing it to sail into the low-density space created. Its purple and green coloration may be a camouflage adaptation for mid-range light wavelengths, possibly indicating the hoopfish is more active at dawn and dusk. While schools of hoopfish will form periodically and evade predators en masse, this behavior is more social than it is defensive, and lone hoopfish are often found hunting for food and displaying generally curious behavior. Edible. Blue palm. The blue palm is a common aquatic plant which thrives in shallower waters with high exposure to sunlight. Long fronds intercept light before it can reach the smaller floral on the seabed. Stalker, a streamlined predator encountered in the kelp forests, in weight of prey leaving the safety of the shallows to feed. The stalker likely carved out its evolutionary niche at the sweet spot between speed and size millions of years ago, and may be one of the oldest species on the planet. The stalker appears to be attracted to titanium deposits, which tends to sharpen and put stress on its teeth. As with many predators, it may be possible to temporarily distract hungry stalkers by feeding them. The stalker's teeth are unusually hard and fast-growing. Its elongated snout can deliver huge biting pressure to larger attackers, while also being used to reach smaller herbivores seeking refuge amongst the rocks. Retinal layering on the eyeballs suggests adaptation for nighttime hunting. The dorsal ridges can be moved independently to deliver superior maneuverability. With long and powerful pelvic fins, the stalker has evolved to hunt the fastest of prey. Stalker teeth may have applications in enameled glass fabrication. Peeper, a fast prey fish encountered in shallow waters and rich in protein, capable of discerning colors not just in shallow waters, but in a variety of lighting conditions. It is also able to close its eyelids, thus preventing light from reflecting off the lenses and rendering the peeper almost invisible to nighttime predators. This species has evolved powerful fins, which enable rapid acceleration in still water, and the ability to leap meters into the air to avoid pursuers. Its beak is likely used to break down corals and tough vegetation. An unusually large nasal cavity serves no obvious purpose, and appears to be specially evolved to detect a single, specific enzyme. Nothing encountered on the planet so far produces a matching odor. The tubes attached to the peeper's torso are connected directly to its stomach and gills, and appear to be designed to expel its contents on demand. Purpose unclear. While the peeper is well adapted to survive in shallow waters, a number of its features serve no discernible purpose. It would appear to be just as well suited to survive in deeper waters, and is somewhat more intelligent than the usual small herbivore. Edible. High calorie count. Further research required. Whole fish. A very small herbivore found in low numbers, often around cave system entrances where their skin coloration blends into the background. By manipulating the size and shape of the hole in its tail, it can perform unpredictable maneuvers. Smaller than most other herbivores, presumably due to a lack of vegetation in low-light environments. Edible. Hoverfish, a small, cautious herbivore commonly found in kelp-rich environments. 6 unique limb appendages feature charged pads, capable of ionizing the surrounding water. The hoverfish uses this ability to maintain its position against the current as it feeds from kelp and lichen. Edible. Brain coral, a permanent, growing colony of microscopic organisms. This coral species has adapted to filter carbon dioxide from the environment, using the carbon to build the colony and expelling the oxygen from specialized exhaust funnels. It is quite hardy, suggesting samples from a mature specimen could be grown artificially. Air tanks are equipped to siphon oxygen from the water where possible. Floater, two species living in symbiosis, which attach to and attempt to feed on any objects they come in contact with. The pink main body and inner suction jaw is the dominant creature. Once attached to an organism or other stable surface, it will attempt to leach nutrients in order to grow. The outer, gel-like substance is a mesh of microorganisms capable of forming a sealed vacuum around the creature's jaws. A thin layer of helium is stored within the outer membrane, providing buoyancy to the floater and anything it is attached to. May aid in flotation of sunken objects. Redwort, a common plant adaptable to many different environments. The redwort is a staple part of the diet of many smaller herbivores. Bulbo tree, a bulb-based flora which roots to the ground and sprouts turquoise leaves. Analysis suggests the sap produced by this plant is poisonous to insects, but can be harvested and consumed by humans for its high water content. II, an extreme evolutionary adaptation, where 90% of the lifeform's body mass is dedicated to the ocular cavity. Deep-set rings in the lens of the oversized eyeball suggest specialization for identifying its predators in low-light environments, long before they come into attack range. With underdeveloped fins incapable of fast movement, this species is vulnerable to agile predators at close range. Shark species may have evolved hunting techniques to close on the II unseen from above, below, or behind. This organism and the common peeper share a common evolutionary ancestor. While the II has sacrificed maneuverability, it shares and enhances its cousin's powerful eyesight. The ancestral alpha peeper may have been one of the first life forms on 4546b to develop eyesight, many millions of years ago. Edible, but low calorie count. Crashfish. This unusual species has developed an emergency defense mechanism based on mutually assured destruction. Forward-mounted eye enables the creature to identify and track potential predators. Sulfur plant. The sulfur plant has evolved to feed on sulfuric compounds secreted by the crashfish, which makes its nest within its leaves. Stronger, more protective plants provide superior nesting grounds, which in turn provide the plant with more nutrients from larger crashfish. Concentrations of sulfur build up in the organism over time. If the crashfish collides with something at sufficient speed, the spikes on its torso are impacted, triggering an explosive chemical reaction. Equip stasis rifle, repulsion cannon, or similar before approaching shallow caves.
30 seconds.
Gel sac. These organic structures grow on cave walls. The purple sacs, which arise from the surface, contain a low-density gel laced with spores. These burst from time to time, floating towards the surface and attaching onto the next rock face they encounter. While the gel sac is edible, its low density renders it an invaluable advanced construction material. Edible. Aerogel construction applications. Bleeder. A simple parasitic organism, little more complex than the common space tick, but just as dirty. Its ductile sac is used for collection and digestion of blood drawn from host creatures. Within its jaw are rows of teeth and mandibles, used to attach to the skin of its victims. The bleeder's low speed and poor defenses suggest they have evolved primarily as carrion feeders. but they are also prone to attack larger living creatures which are less likely to take notice and take action against this parasite. Inconvenient and unhygienic. Avoid or incapacitate. Spadefish, a medium-sized herbivore found in deeper waters, observed swimming near the seabed from where it can keep its one eye on predators in the water above it. Commonly encountered in plant-rich environments, the spadefish is well adapted to hide amongst the vegetation. Spadefish tend to move in loose shoals, and despite their low speed, may take necessary measures to avoid confirmed predators. Edible.
Seconds.
Eye stalk, a cave-dwelling tuber, dotted with luminescent, photosensitive eyes. These eyes may in some way direct the twisted growth of the stems themselves, possibly in reaction to other light sources, proximity of cave walls, or other environmental conditions. Ancient floater. Biodata suggests these vast floaters have matured in an ingenious symbiosis with the land they have attached to. The attached landmass is raised in the water, increasing sunlight and encouraging plant growth. As older plants decay, organic residues and nutrients seep into the rock and are consumed by the floater. These circumstances must have held for thousands of years for a floater to reach this size. Immature floaters are born near the surface, from where they sink to the seabed, attaching to any stable surface they find on the way. Those individuals fortunate enough to attach to a digestible nutrient source will grow in size, thus increasing their buoyancy and drawing whatever they are attached to closer to the surface. In extreme circumstances, a number of floaters may attach to a Leviathan-class lifeform, forcing it to the surface and effectively asphyxiating it. The body will be consumed over a number of months until eventually dissolving, leaving the floaters free to attach to a new host. Those creatures which successfully raise landmasses to the surface are rewarded with a burgeoning and permanent food source, allowing them to finally reproduce and begin the cycle again. Pink cap, a land-based fungal species with harvestable spores. Inedible. Voxel shrub, a pink-leafed plant with an angular appearance which grows exclusively on land. Ning plant, a hardy specimen which grows on land. The vase-like trunk protects the root system from predation and self-repairs over time, explaining the characteristic cracks on the side. Speckled rattler, a brittle land plant containing large spores which generate a characteristic rattle when the plant is shaken. This may act to ward off predators or even encourage predation as a means of spreading its spores. Jaffa cup, a common land fungus found in clusters, grows quickly, size is limited only by available nutrients and space. Grub basket, an orange-colored land plant which usually contains a thick, protein-rich sludge at its base. This may suggest a carnivorous life cycle, wherein the grubs and insects are attracted to the bright petals, make their way to the center of the plant, but are unable to scale back up the slick inner leaves and are ultimately digested. Lantern tree, a conglomeration of individual vines which rely on one another for structural support, grows exclusively on fertile land. Each vine produces orange, lantern-shaped fruits with minimal nutritional and hydration value, edible in an emergency. Fern palm, This specimen was first identified in an artificial grow bed on the island. It is not listed in existing flora databases, so it is unclear whether or not it is native to this planet. Genetic code shares some features with other local plant life, but this may be a result of DNA transfusion rather than natural evolution. Cave crawler, agile, territorial carrion feeder, well adapted to both land and sea. Its gas exchange membrane absorbs essential gases from the air or water for basic bodily regulation. This species seeks out corpses in packs before defending its claim while the corpse is devoured. Necessary waste recycler. Avoid or incapacitate. Marble melon plant. This plant collects water from the air rather than relying on its root system, and produces large, fleshy fruits which are both edible and have atypically high water content. Chinese potato plant. The Chinese potato is common throughout the China territories, where synthetic foods are still stigmatized, and there remain large tracts of arable land on which to grow fresh produce. Genetically designed prior to the expansion, this plant is highly adaptable to different environments, and a staple of new colonies galaxy-wide. Edible. Anchor pods. These unusual flora specimens have been encountered exclusively in the deep reefs. They consist of a large, spherical, gas-filled membrane, anchored to the seafloor by its root system. At these depths, it is unlikely this structure is designed to enhance access to sunlight, but rather the pod's ability to propagate. Once the pods attain sufficient height, they burst, releasing spores which catch the currents and disperse around the local area. Membrane tree. This entity defies neat categorization. It consists of more than one coral species working in tandem to create an insulated microcosm enclosed within a translucent membrane. Found exclusively growing on basalt rock in the Grand Reefs, the homeostatic conditions within are considerably warmer and more dense with microbial life than the outside environment, and the bright purple fauna inside will likely die off quickly if exposed. Tree mushroom. Analysis of these large organic structures reveals a microcosm of cooperating, cohabitating, and competing life forms. The main trunk is a species of coral, some colonies up to 50,000 years old. The caps which line it share more in common with earth fungi. Other organisms grow on the structure whenever there is space and light. Surrounding waters are dense with herbivorous life forms in the 1 to 10 millimeter range, to the extent that larger herbivores appear to have mostly abandoned the area. Violet bow, a common luminescent plant which grows in patches on the seabed. Reefback leviathan. This vast life form is in excess of 30 meters long and has been designated Leviathan class. Fortunately, it feeds exclusively on plankton-life life forms in the water. Most of the life form's topside and some of its underside is protected by a thick, layered exoskeleton. This suggests an evolutionary path quite different from other organisms on 4546b, most of which are vertebrate in nature. The reefback species has likely been able to grow far larger than other herbivores because anything large enough to break through its shell has long since gone extinct. Similar in appearance to the algae glands of the gasopod, the enzyme pod organs on the reefback's underside serve some unknown purpose in its digestive system, and are capable of expelling small quantities of stomach enzymes into the surrounding waters. An array of different barnacle and plant species grow on the reefback shell, thrusting their roots into ancient scars in the chitin and taking advantage of their mobility to avoid predation. Nonetheless, reefbacks will often be pursued by the faster, hungrier herbivores, and thus this leviathan species is a mobile microcosm worthy of years of study in itself. Reefbacks' lifespans likely extend through many centuries, should they survive their initial growth cycle. For the first few decades, their smaller size would make them vulnerable to carnivorous leviathans. Sociable, seen traveling in small pods and communicating by an echoing call, behavior is consistent with low-level sentience. Harbors plants, small fish, and metal-rich particles. Regress shell. This specimen is composed of a complex series of regressing rings, connected by tendrils. Cave bush, a purple, luminescent species which grows well on hardy terrain away from sunlight. Biter, vicious, pack-hunting predator. 94% muscle, 4% connective tissue, 2% brain. Indiscriminate when hungry, almost always hungry. Specialized olfactory antenna, employed in detection of bodily fluids in the water at impressive ranges. Secondary pair of eyes, likely dedicated to detecting the peripheral movement of larger predators and hungrier members of its own species. Overdeveloped tail fin, favors outpacing and outnumbering their prey over individual maneuverability. Calculations suggest creatures up to 100 times the biter's body weight could succumb to a focused assault by a pack of 10. Avoid packs. Try not to bleed. Tree leech. Parasitic fungus-like growth found attached to other life forms. An enzyme is released by the organism which dissolves a hole in the skin of the host, from which it leaches nutrients directly. Outer tooth-lined jaw serves no identified purpose. May be used during a different stage of the organism's life cycle. Rouge cradle, a complex cave-dwelling flora specimen. The bright yellow core of this plant is protected by a rigid cage, presumably to ward off medium-sized herbivores. Furled papyrus. The function of the distinctive curled leaves on this aquatic plant is not immediately clear. It is possible the leaves unfurl in low-light conditions, or that they are designed to channel water currents through the main body of the plant, thus enhancing nutrient take-up. Earthen coral tubes. Genetic resemblances to the giant coral tubes encountered elsewhere suggest evolutionary divergence approximately 100,000 years ago, with this subspecies being substantially lower in calcium content and specializing in growing in smaller, denser packs at deeper levels. No practical applications discovered. Spiked horn grass. While it shares a close genetic similarity with bloodgrass, this species has evolved to house its root system in rigid, horn-shaped enclosures. Sand shark, a powerful, medium-sized predator that burrows into the sand and ambushes its prey from below. As with many predators, it may be possible to temporarily distract sand sharks by feeding any hungry specimens that draw close. The unusual location of the forward dorsal fin suggests the purpose unrelated to movement through the water. It may be employed in shifting sand beneath the surface, or in mating rituals, or may simply be an evolutionary dead end. Thick armor plating renders the sand shark almost immune to attack from above, While it is capable of impressive acceleration, its exoskeleton prevents it from changing direction quickly. The sand shark is thus a perfectly designed ambush hunter, but ill-suited to sustained pursuits. Its feet are ill-designed for ambulation, likely used to disturb the surface of the sand so the lifeform can burrow into the ground. Avoid. Be vigilant for ambush and sandy biomes. Jelly shroom. A lifeform unique to a microcosm located in a cave system within the grassy plateaus, where a concentration of carnivorous lifeforms wards off smaller predators. Consists of a tough, trunk-like base, from which grows a fragile purple membrane. Membrane structure suggests vulnerability to predation, but evidence thereof is lacking. Unknown defensive mechanisms. Possible symbiotic relationship. No predators identified.
30 seconds.
Drooping stingers. 0 photosynthetic cells detected. Implies carnivorous adaptation to low-light environments. Follicles along the tentacles are capable of detecting contact with foreign bodies, triggering an electromagnetic charge in the 600-watt range. Prey is likely paralyzed and consumed over many weeks. It preys upon small fish. Avoid. Tiger plant. This plant has adapted to sense fluctuations in the water at up to 15 meters, and is capable both of prehensile movement of its tubes, as well as the propelling of thorns at speeds of up to 10 meters per second. Although capable of incapacitating small herbivores, this plant lacks carnivorous digestive organs. Would-be predators caught in its defensive perimeter serve as a warning to other herbivores not to approach. And then, as they decompose, they serve as fertilizer for the tiger plant. Avoid or incapacitate. Sea Treader Leviathan. A vast bipedal leviathan which roams the reefs in herds, grazing the sea floor. Antennae on the creature's head can detect a range of scents, helping the sea treaders to find fresh grazing pastures, avoid the path of large predators, and sense chemical signals from others of their kind. Thick armor protects the creature from attack by all but the largest of carnivores. 2 legs extend from the rear. Their elongated snout is used to siphon up plant material from the sea floor and maintain balance. Large herds would decimate the flora of a single area, thus encouraging the sea treader's migratory behavior. Families keep their young towards the center of the herd, and parents will lash out at over-curious interlopers in search of an easy meal. Sea treader herds may unearth mineral deposits as they churn up the sand. Jelly ray. This species has adapted to low-light environments with a translucent, luminescent body. This adaptation may help to light the surrounding area for foraging, ward away predators, and identify the organism to others of its kind. Smaller creatures have been seen swimming in the jelly ray's wake to take advantage of the light source for their own ends, and the ray itself will approach light sources, perhaps mistaking them for others of its own species. Inedible. Bulbbush. This aquatic species has evolved to grow in deep, sandy environments, and to conserve its hydration levels against relatively extreme external temperatures. The root system can fragment the shale rock it grows on to form a deep anchor point, allowing predators to graze but not easily uproot the entire plant. This grazing will tend to dislodge parts of the plant, and each section is capable of growing into a fully formed adult plant, explaining the concentrations of bulb bushes in some parts of the world. Edible in small quantities. High water content. Spotted dockleaf. A simple aquatic plant. Chemicals within the leaves act to neutralize poisons and acids found in other local specimens, thereby actively encouraging predation by herbivores, albeit in small quantities. This ensures the plant both spreads its seed but retains enough surface area on its leaves to survive itself. Bloodroot. These root systems generally extend from one cave wall to another. Where this root system breaks through into open water, its tendrils coil around one another for enhanced structural integrity. Where the root meets the cave wall, it penetrates into the rock and continues to grow, albeit at a slower rate. Both bloodroots and blood vines produce blood oil pustules, confirming that they are in fact one and the same flora species. The majority of the root system thrives within the rock itself, occasionally breaking into open water to reach untapped mineral resources, or generating vines which feed on water-based nutrients. Deep shroom, a discolored relative of the acid mushroom adapted to low-light conditions. Considerably more acidic than its shallow-dwelling cousin, it may have applications in advanced fabrication, can be processed into hydrochloric acid. Blood vine. This species of kelp grows in sparse copses, deep on the ocean floor, and provides shelter for an array of distinct fauna and megafauna. Survival at these depths is challenging, and the life forms which make their homes here have developed unusual coping mechanisms, including a bleaching of skin pigment, dependency on naturally occurring metals and oils to adjust to temperature and pressure, and in some cases even electrical defense mechanisms. The vibrant red oils which seep from the blood vine coagulate into semi-hard pustules, which frequently fall loose and form a vital foodstuff for the local ecosystem, or are otherwise reabsorbed into the ground over time. Ghost weed grows exclusively in deep waters where its pale pigmentation is visible on the fewest wavelengths. Bone shark, a large and powerful predator that lives in small groups and fiercely defends its hunting grounds. Thickly armored exoskeleton suggests defensive adaptation, either to larger predators or in-species aggression. Marked similarity to the segmented exoskeleton of the sand shark, suggesting a relatively recent common ancestor. Large eyeballs, consistent with high light sensitivity, likely for hunting of luminescent prey in low-light environments. Generally slow and unresponsive as a means of energy conservation, they will act with uncompromising speed and aggression against any threat in their territory. Avoid. May be distracted by light sources. Crab squid. This large predator can be found in deep waters, where it lurks amongst the blood kelp and membrane trees in search of prey. It can deploy a powerful electromagnetic pulse to defend itself. 10 limbs feature different appendages for swimming, walking, hunting, and possibly even tool use. Creatures caught in its grasp are expertly butchered and quickly consumed. Rays and other illuminated herbivores are its usual prey, and it will approach and attack any light source in the vicinity. Its EMP blast was likely developed as a response to predation by creatures with electrical hunting mechanisms. While crab squids appear to have large brains and a resemblance to the intelligent squids of Earth, this organ inside the creature's head is in fact its stomach, which it must fill with startling regularity. Neutralizes electrical equipment. Lights attract its unwanted attention. A moaboid, a simple, non-sentient organism, found attached to land with high levels of fossilized organic matter. It feeds on this matter until it reaches maturity, at which point it divides to create two new, genetically identical offspring, and the cycle continues. Ghost ray. This ray species has adapted to deep sea conditions. Its body is fully protected by a translucent skin, and its large wings are capable of generating considerable thrust. As is common for rays on 4546b, the ghost ray's flesh is inedible, making it one of the more resilient herbivores. Feeds on plant matter that has settled on the ground in deep sea caverns. Crab claw kelp, a blue-tipped kelp species which tends to grow in or near acidic brine pools on the ocean floor. These brine pools are hazardous to most life forms. However, the crab claw has adapted by developing a thick, inflexible root system, which can withstand the environment and which raises the sensitive blue feeding nodules above the level of the brine. Ampiel, powerful and inquisitive predator, found inhabiting the deeper waters of the reefs and bulbush colonies. Torso-mounted prongs generate a powerful electrical current, which the ampiel uses to incapacitate its prey. A large, flexible jaw, studded with large teeth. If a faster, stronger, and hungrier predator lives on the reefs, it appears to avoid the ampiel. Avoid or incapacitate. Cuttlefish, a small, grey-coloured herbivore. The cuttlefish displays high levels of intelligence, curiosity, and attachment. Strangely, this species has not been encountered in the wild, and the scanned specimen had to be artificially hatched within an alien containment unit. In the absence of wild specimens, little can be known for certain about the cuttlefish's life cycle. It is possible that environmental conditions have changed, forcing the species to the edge of extinction and leaving its eggs in permanent stasis. It is also possible the cuttlefish has been genetically altered, or even imported to 4546b from another world. We do know that the cuttlefish is a herbivore, which displays highly social behavior in its interspecies interactions. As was observed in earth dolphins before their extinction, this creature seems to understand the concept of other minds, the prime indicator of true sentience, and attempts to communicate with a series of chirps and chirrups. Evidence suggests the cuttlefish is capable of understanding and following simple commands, in addition to assessing the emotional state of individuals around it and responding in kind. Emotional connection between living creatures is an essential component of psychological health. Crab snake. This life form appears to live in symbiosis with the local flora. All encountered specimens have been located within 50 meters of jelly shroom flora, frequently within the plants themselves. The crab snake has 2 pairs of fangs and 1 larger claw on either side. It plunges these claws into its prey, locking them in place while the inner jaw tears through the flesh. jelly shrooms provide the perfect lair from which to ambush their prey and protect their young. The presence of crab snakes likely deters herbivores from feeding on the jelly shroom itself, thus ensuring the relationship continues. Crab snakes display territorial behavior when threatened, patrolling the cave systems in which they reside. Avoid. Reaper Leviathan. Leviathan-class species are vast organisms at the top of their respective food chains. This species is a streamlined hunter, with highly developed senses. This Leviathan is capable of locking prey in place with 4 powerful mandibles, and drawing it within reach of its jaws. Simulated pressure exceeds sea moth crush resistance. The deep roar emitted by the Reaper at regular intervals is effectively sonar. If you can hear it, the Reaper can see you. Scanned specimen measured 55 meters long, observed circling its prey and attacking from behind. This creature is almost all muscle, very little brain, no sense of morality, just muscle, synapses, and teeth. Motivational note: congratulations on getting close enough to scan it and living to see the results. Extreme threat. Avoid in all circumstances. Ghost Leviathan. This creature is approaching the size limit for sustainable organic life forms and has been designated Leviathan class. Adults of this species have been encountered exclusively around the edges of the volcanic crater, which supports life on this part of the planet, and react with extreme aggression on approach. Cartilaginous extensions of this creature's skull form a hammerhead, which protects the ghost Leviathan as it performs devastating ramming attacks. While fully capable of tearing through the flesh of any creature in range, all evidence indicates that mature ghost leviathans feed on microscopic life forms in the waters around the edges of the inhabited zone. Their vicious attacks on interlopers to their domain are not predatory in nature, but territorial. A creature so vast requires a huge expanse of water to satisfy its daily calorie requirements. Its muscled interior body is surrounded by a translucent outer membrane, suggesting adaptation for deep, low-light environments. When threatened, it can tense its entire body before lashing out with incredible speed. Probable migratory behavior. This specimen was likely born far from the area it was encountered. Extreme threat. Avoid the crater edge. Mesmer. Small, carnivorous life form with a unique hunting mechanism that enables it to hypnotize its foes. The Mesmer swims using a number of wings which can be angled up and forwards on approaching its prey. Tiny lenses on the surface can be tilted independently to create mesmerizing patterns which flood the victim's brain with enticing messages, interpreted in whatever form is most convincing by the target. The Mesmer can open the jaw-like recesses in its protective outer shell in order to, Error 463, share its beauty. Do not resist. Assessment. Draw closer. Pyrocoral. This coral species is unlike any other encountered on 4546b insofar as it relies on magma flow rather than water current to deliver nutrients. As lava rises up from the planet's core and erupts at vents, This coral forms around the base until eventually it has surrounded the entire vent. Lava is then funneled up through the coral, allowing it to siphon minerals and heat as it goes. River Prowler, a fast, agile predator discovered at great depths. Powerful jaws used for both savaging prey and warding off larger predators. Its eel-like torso is highly vulnerable, consisting predominantly of spinal column and cartilage. It shows significant overlap with other eel-like predators on 4546b. It will aggressively keep its jaws facing its opponent, but smaller, faster life forms may have the advantage. Avoid. Reginald, a small herbivore and a distant relative of the common peeper, sharing that species' well-developed side-facing eyes, approximate size, and body profile. Dull green coloration for deep water camouflage. Luminescent tail coloration likely part of mating behavior. Filters algae and other plant material from the water via 4 gill-like forward-facing orifices. Edible. High calorie count. Spinefish. Small, school-mentality prey fish, closely related to the hoopfish. A combination of near-translucent flesh with white, rib-like markings give this fish a deathly appearance. It takes advantage of this to avoid the attention of its predators. Moves in schools for protection, but will disperse and flee if necessary, whereupon those fortunate enough to escape the gaze of their assailants will make for the sea floor and hide amongst the detritus. Edible. Low calorie count. Lava. A grub-like species which appears to lack sight and smell, but is able to sense and drain thermal and electrical energy in its immediate environment. Its suction cups are capable of attaching to smooth surfaces and generating high-pressure suction. Be released if it comes under sufficient strain. Thick scales protect from extreme temperatures. The lava lacks a traditional digestive system. Instead, it powers its internal processes directly from the energy it consumes, attracted to energy sources of all kinds. Draws energy from its prey to survive. Avoid when piloting vehicles. Remove to conserve batteries. Magmarang. This organism is an adaptation of the common boomerang, evolved to survive in high-temperature environments. Dark red coloration helps this subspecies to blend into indigenous rock environments. Orange detailing resembles active lava flow, deterring more cautious predators. Marginally bolder than its shallow-dwelling cousins, the magmarang will nonetheless flee any creature larger than itself with impressive speed. Edible. Red eye. A small herbivorous creature with poor maneuverability, evolved to inhabit high-temperature environments. Deep red and orange coloration enables the subject to blend into volcanic environments and reflect environmental thermal energy, thus rendering it almost invisible to most predators. Delicate, light-based eyesight is impractical at these temperatures, and the red eye has developed thermal vision in its place. In this species' volcanic domain, edible plant matter and potential predators are the coldest entities in range. Edible. Low calorie count. Crimson ray. One of the largest rays on the planet, displaying generally docile behavior. Scales formed on the skin protect this ray from extreme temperatures, allowing it to survive in areas unpopulated by competing scavengers. Forward-mounted eye sockets suggests a predatory evolutionary history, left behind long ago. Lava lizard, a medium-sized predator adapted for life in volcanic regions, and remarkably able to spit molten rock at its foes. Its four-mounted mandibles are designed to do maximum damage to prey. Sharp internal teeth tear through flesh and bone alike. The scar tissue is likely due to regular exposure to magma. Lava lizards build up a thick layer of scar tissue over time, which enables them to withstand even greater temperatures, inside and out. It is able to both defend itself by burying its body in magma and to go on the offensive by spitting molten rocks at its foes. Avoid, especially in the presence of lava flow. Blood crawler, an agile, territorial scavenger that moves in packs across the seabed, closely related to the amphibious cave crawler, but adapted to deep sea conditions. The greatest difference between the crawlers on 4546b are the four legs, which extend more than a meter from the blood crawler's torso, allowing it to move at surprising speed across the seabed, and even to scale walls. The blood crawler can lower its entire body to bring its mandibles within grasping distance of the carrion on which it feeds, while retaining the maneuverability it requires to avoid its predators. Necessary waste recycler. Avoid or incapacitate. Ghost Leviathan Juvenile. This large predator has adapted to live in deep waters and dark cave systems, attacking anything and everything in its quest to grow larger. Soft outer membrane and elongated body enable superior navigation of tight cave environments. Displays some similarities to other eel-like predators in the area. However, the Ghost Leviathan has covered over the electrical prongs of its inner torso with a taut, transparent membrane, which delivers superior maneuverability. In its juvenile state, this Leviathan feeds on larger herbivores and unfortunate members of its own species. They display a remarkable rate of growth, which shows no signs of stopping, suggesting that they must abandon their hatching grounds before they grow too large and make for more open waters. Avoid. Giant Cove Tree. A vast tree encountered in the deep cove, and the only one of its kind encountered on the planet. The tree is surrounded by rays, grazing on its pink outer leaves. A hardy, fast-growing bark covers the outside of the tree. Minuscule organisms inhabit the notches in the surface. The tree's branches are wrapped around a number of maturing eggs, belonging to the species designated Ghost Leviathan. This tree appears to be an ancient nesting ground. The eggs were laid when the tree was young, and now the branches protect and grow with them as they await the right conditions to hatch. Brine Lily. These lily-like plants have evolved to take advantage of the relative density of the acidic brine pools encountered near the ocean floor to float safely on the surface. Tendril-like roots extend down into the brine, drawing essential salts and minerals from the water. Sea Crown. This plant consists primarily of a large bladder-like sac containing a huge variety of bacterial species, which may enable it to break down complex compounds it draws from the root system. Shares large sections of genetic code with the membrane tree. Environment scans indicate this plant is rare to the point of extinction. Gabe's Feather. This plant grows almost exclusively in deeper waters, where its hand-like leaves have evolved to filter sediment from the environment. it is likely dependent on the excretions of fauna populating the waters above and around it. Giant bulb bush. This vast plant is centuries old. While it dominates the surrounding area, a complex root system below the surface connects it with other bulb bushes in the area. Nutrient flow within the network suggests the giant bulb has adapted to feed the weaker bushes and keep the forest healthy. Sea Emperor juvenile, a juvenile emperor specimen. It is producing a highly potent form of enzyme 42, which should be capable of fully curing individuals of the alien bacterium. Sea Dragon Leviathan. A colossal leviathan with reptilian features, seen stalking the very heart of the volcanic crater which underpins life in this area. The scanned specimen measured 112 meters in length. Tissue analysis reveals that this specimen consists of 1/3 inanimate materials, focused around the chest area. Consumption and retention of mineral substances may explain the lifeform's ability to withstand extremes of temperature. It even appears to be able to consume molten materials and expel them at its adversaries. Evolutionary distinct forearms are used for both propulsion and defensive purposes. Findings suggest evolutionary divergence from other species on the planet tens of millions of years ago. The sea dragon is likely one of the oldest species on the planet. As the largest carnivorous species encountered on 4546b, almost anything is potential prey. With few substantial targets in the volcanic cave systems, the sea dragon likely ventures out into cooler waters to hunt other, smaller leviathans, cornering them and forcing them deeper, where they are ultimately boiled alive. The sea dragon's size and the restrictions of the cave systems they inhabit suggests their population numbers are extremely low, perhaps in the single digits. While it is not unusual for larger predators to sustain lower populations, it is possible the sea dragon's food sources have diminished over time. This species may be nearing extinction. Extreme threat. Avoid in all circumstances.